Laila sat beside the old wooden chair where Bashir rested, his frail hands trembling slightly as they lay on his lap. His once strong frame had withered over the years, reduced to fragile bones wrapped in delicate skin. His deep-set eyes, though tired, held warmth, an unshakable gentleness that had been there ever since Laila could remember. She ran her fingers over the rim of the water glass in her hands, staring at the tiny ripples that formed with each movement. The weight of exhaustion pressed on her shoulders, but she refused to acknowledge it. Bashir had been her mother's second husband, not her biological father. Yet he had raised her with more love than she ever could have asked for. She owed him everything. Still, there were nights when the burden felt unbearable. The constant care, the sleepless nights, the silent sacrifices. Sometimes it was too much, but then Bashir would smile at her, murmuring her name in that affectionate way of his, and guilt would coil around her chest, suffocating her selfish thoughts before they could fully form. "I must be getting old," Bashir said suddenly, his voice carrying a quiet humor. "My back aches more than usual today." Laila forced a small smile. "That's because you are old," he chuckled weakly. "I never thought I'd live long enough to be a burden to you." The words stung. "You're not a burden, Baba," Bashir sighed, tilting his head slightly to look at her. "You work so hard. I see the tiredness in your eyes, even when you try to hide it." He paused, as if weighing his words carefully. "You should be living your life, not... Don't..." Laila cut him off gently, but firmly. She didn't want to hear it. Silence stretched between them, comfortable yet heavy. The air smelled faintly of sandalwood, a scent that had clung to Bashir's clothes for as long as she could remember. It was strange how certain smells could make time collapse, pulling memories from years ago into the present. "You should rest," she finally said, standing up. "Tomorrow, I'll help you with a proper bath. You'll feel better." Bashir nodded but said nothing, only watching her with that knowing gaze of his, the gaze of a man who had lived long enough to understand things that others couldn't. As Laila walked away, she felt his eyes linger on her, as though he were memorizing her presence, etching her into his final days. A strange unease settled in her stomach, but she ignored it. Tomorrow, she would take care of him tomorrow. Laila filled a small bucket with warm water, steam rising as she stirred it with her hand. A scent of old soap mixed with the damp air, clinging to her skin. Bashir sat on a low stool, his body slouched with age, his breathing slow but steady. She hesitated before reaching for the buttons of his shirt. Her fingers trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the weight of the moment. This man had once carried her on his shoulders, had wiped her tears, had shielded her from a world that often felt too cruel. And now, she was the one tending to him, undressing him like a child. "I can do it," Bashir murmured, weakly attempting to lift his hands, but they barely obeyed him. "It's okay, Baba," Laila said softly. She unbuttoned his shirt with delicate precision, her heart aching as she saw how thin he had become, his ribs pressed against his skin, a stark reminder of time's merciless passage. She swallowed hard and gently pulled the fabric away, revealing the marks of age. Wrinkled skin, fading scars, the evidence of a life lived fully. He shivered slightly as the first splash of warm water touched his back. She moved slowly, carefully, as though afraid he might break. "Do you remember?" he asked suddenly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Remember what? When you were little, you hated baths. Your mother used to chase you around the house. And when she caught you, you'd cry so much that I had to sit with you in the water to calm you down." Laila smiled faintly, the memory surfacing like a forgotten melody. "I remember. I used to hold you in my arms and pour water over your head." He continued, his voice distant. "You'd cling to me. So small, so fragile. Feels like yesterday." Her throat tightened. The roles had reversed now. Yet there was no resentment, only a deep, aching tenderness. She rubbed the soap between her palms and gently ran them over his shoulders, feeling the frail bones beneath. His skin was cold despite the warmth of the water. As she moved her hands, Bashir closed his eyes, a sigh escaping his lips, not of discomfort, but of surrender. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The water dripped in soft rhythms, the silence between them filled with unsaid words. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "I'm sorry, Laila." She froze. "For what?" "For needing you like this." Her hands stilled on his shoulders, and something inside her cracked. "Don't say that." He gave a weary smile, but there was sadness in his eyes. "You should be living your life, not taking care of an old man." Laila swallowed the lump in her throat. "You raised me, Baba. This is nothing compared to what you've done for me." Bashir looked at her for a long time, then nodded, as if accepting her words. But the sadness didn't leave his eyes. Laila dipped the cloth into the warm water and wrung it out before pressing it gently against Bashir's back. His skin was soft, fragile, like paper that had been folded too many times. She moved slowly, careful not to hurt him, her fingers tracing the lines of age and time. She had never noticed how small he had become. As a child, he had seemed larger than life, an unshakable presence that nothing could break. Now he was shrinking before her eyes, disappearing into himself. The realization made her chest tighten. Bashir sighed, his body relaxing under her touch. "You're kind, Laila. You've always been kind." She didn't respond, just kept washing him, feeling the weight of his words settle deep inside her. "I was afraid," he admitted after a moment. "When your mother died, I didn't know if I could be enough for you. I didn't know if you'd ever love me the way you loved her." Layla's hands stilled. She looked at him, at the man who had spent his entire life putting her first, and the weight of his words crushed her. "Baba." Her voice was barely above a whisper. "You were just a little girl." He continued, as if he hadn't heard her. "You'd cry at night, calling for her, and I didn't know what to do. I'd sit beside you, hold your tiny hand, but I knew it wasn't the same." He smiled faintly, lost in the memory. "Still, you never pushed me away." Laila blinked back, the tears burning her eyes. She had never thought about it from his perspective. She had never realized how much he must have struggled, how much he had feared losing her. "I never felt alone, Laila," he said softly. "Not with you." The cloth slipped from her hands, sinking into the water. She clenched her fists, willing herself to stay composed, but the lump in her throat wouldn't go away. Bashir turned his head slightly, his gaze meeting hers. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me." A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly, as if refusing to acknowledge its presence. She picked up the cloth again and resumed washing him, her hands steadier this time. Every touch, every movement, was filled with an unspoken promise. She wasn't just bathing him. She was telling him, without words, that he had never been alone either, that his love had been enough, that she was here not out of obligation, but because she wanted to be. Bashir closed his eyes, a soft smile on his lips, as if he had finally found peace. Laila helped Bashir into a clean shirt, her hands careful as she buttoned it up. His body felt lighter than ever, as if he was slipping away piece by piece. He sat quietly, his breathing slow but steady, watching her with tired eyes. She guided him back to his bed, adjusting the pillows to make him comfortable. He sighed as he sank into them, a faint smile on his lips. "You always take care of me so well," he murmured. Laila sat beside him, brushing a strand of white hair from his forehead. "You took care of me first." His fingers twitched slightly, reaching for her hand. She took it without hesitation, feeling how cool his skin had become. A strange feeling settled in her chest, a quiet knowing that she couldn't explain. For a while, neither of them spoke. The world outside was silent, as if holding its breath. "You should sleep," she said softly. Bashir nodded but didn't let go of her hand. "Stay a little longer." Laila squeezed his fingers gently. "I'm here." His eyelids grew heavy, his breath slowing. "You are my light, Laila," he whispered. "Always." Her throat tightened, but she forced herself to smile. "And you are mine." A deep, content sigh left his lips. His grip on her hand loosened slightly, his body relaxing into the bed. Laila watched him for a long time, memorizing every line on his face, every rise and fall of his chest. She wanted to hold on to this moment, to keep him here just a little longer. Eventually, exhaustion pulled at her. She leaned her head against the edge of the bed, her fingers still wrapped around his, and let sleep take her. When morning came, the world felt different. The air was still too quiet. She lifted her head, her fingers still entwined with his, but his grip was no longer there. A deep stillness surrounded him. His face was peaceful, as if he had simply drifted into another place, one where pain and time could no longer reach him. Laila didn't cry. Instead, she brought his hand to her lips, pressing a soft kiss against his cold skin. Love, she realized, wasn't always loud or demanding. Sometimes it was quiet. Sometimes it was just being there until the very end.